I'm trying to solve the top unsolved case in the United States. I think with all of our minds put together, we should definitely be able to solve this. This is the case of the Black Dahlia. While I give you the summary of the case, I'm going to be doing makeup like they would wear back in the 1940s when she was murdered. On January 15th, 1947, Elizabeth Short, an aspiring actress in Los Angeles, was found dead. It is one of the oldest unsolved cases in Los Angeles. Not only is it a crazy, horrific case, but it was also just an impossible case to solve. Until now, because we're gonna figure it out together. She was found in a park here in Los Angeles, and she was found by a mother and child who said that she looked like she was posed to be a mannequin. Now, I'm not gonna go into all the gruesome details about what happened to her, but I will post them on my YouTube community tab if you guys want to check that out. Anyways, when the body was found by police, it had been wiped clean of any handprints or anything. So they concluded that she probably was killed somewhere else and moved to the park after. Near her body, the police found a heel print and a cement sack that they thought might have been used to transfer the body. At this point, she was still unidentified, so the LAPD reached out to the FBI to get her identified using her fingerprints. Her fingerprints actually turned up rather quickly, and they were able to identify her because she had applied for a job recently that was a clerk at the commissary for the US Army in a camp called Camp Cook. Then her prints turned up again because she had actually been arrested and they had her mugshots. She had been arrested in Santa Barbara for underage drinking just a few months before she applied for that job. The police department gave those photos to the press, and the press went on a frenzy. The media learned more and more about Elizabeth's story. They started to brand her as kind of like a sexual deviant. One police report read that she knew over 50 different men and had been seen with 25 different men in the last 60 days. It continued with saying she was a teaser of men. 1 week after her death, the Examiner, a newspaper, got a call with a man claiming to be her murderer. He even had proof, and he would send it to the Examiner in just a few days, he said. They tried to trace the call, but I'm out of time. I'm trying to solve the top unsolved case in the United States with the help of you guys. This is part 2 of the Black Dahlia. This is the makeup look that I'm going to be attempting. So the last thing I told you is that somebody reached out anonymously and said that they were going to deliver Elizabeth's belongings. The police tried to trace the call, but they weren't able to. When they received the belongings, they had all been wiped down with gasoline so that there were no fingerprints or traces of who delivered them. They showed up in a manila envelope, and there was actually a partial fingerprint found on the envelope, but it was never examined. On the 26th, a second letter arrived. This letter was a handwritten note, and it said, "Had my fun with the police," and a location. Black Dahlia Avenger. More like Black Dahlia Murderer, in my opinion. Like, how would you have her stuff if you weren't the one who did it? The police went to the location, but nobody ever showed up. Trust the process. Next, the killer sent a note to the same place, but this time it was magazine cutouts, and it said, "Have changed my mind. You will not give me a square deal. Dahlia killing was justified." Like, doing that cannot be justified. And again, everything sent by the person had been wiped clean by gasoline. The police actually had 150 different suspects at one time, but it never led to any arrests. In the package was her birth certificate, her address book, and the address book is the one that was like a big flag because when police looked into it, it had so many different names of men in it, and on the front cover was a specific man's name, Mark Hansen. But if you were the killer and you had this address book, would you leave your name in it? No. Which is probably why a few of the pages were actually ripped out of the address book. Police knew this, but they looked into everyone in the address book just in case. And specifically, they looked into Mark Hansen, because why was he on the front cover? The LAPD told the Los Angeles Examiner that Mark Hansen was not a suspect. There was no case against him at all. But it is interesting to note that Harry Hansen worked on the Black Dahlia case from day one. I don't know if they're related, but they did have the same last name and lived in the same area. If they are related, that's kind of suspicious, don't you think? My friend won't let anyone in her house after 9:30, and I just found out why. They're the happiest couple that I've ever met. Like, if you didn't believe in love, this couple would make you believe in it. But one evening, it all came crashing down. I arrived at JC's house at 5 p.m. sharp. She is obsessed with time, always wondering why someone's a minute late or a minute early, as if she's a detective and you're in her interrogation room. But before I get into what happened, let me tell you a little bit about JC. She's got pitch black hair, a nose ring, wears dark clothing. She's the type of girl that has pumpkins sitting out in the beginning of September, and she's super welcoming welcoming. Actually, the rug on her front door reads, "Leave now." So tonight I was going by her house because me and her had planned a movie night. But we had to start the movie night at 5 because she never lets anyone in her house after 9:30. As soon as I walked into her house, I immediately smelled cinnamon cookies. I was hoping they were for me, well, for us. But JC just brought in a big bowl of popcorn and some drinks, which was fine. I certainly wasn't going to complain and lose her trust for the next 2 decades. Then the movie ended. We thought Halloween 2 was okay. While JC went upstairs to find another movie, I decided to give myself a tour of the house, and here's when things started to go wrong. I was just glad she was willing to watch another movie and that she was letting her friends back into her life. She hadn't really been social since her and Tyler broke up. No one knows what happened between them, just that they were together one day and then the next day they weren't. After the breakup, no one heard from Tyler again. Then we started the second movie, Saw 4. She fell asleep during the movie, and the next time I checked my phone, it was 9:15. I thought, I better get going soon, even though she probably wasn't gonna wake up in the next 15 minutes. I headed over to the kitchen to grab a glass of water before leaving, and then I saw those cinnamon cookies on the counter, and I was like, she's not gonna miss one, right? After finishing the cookie, I turned on the water on the sink to wash my hands, but I was trying to be like really quiet because I didn't want to wake her up. The water didn't wake her up, but my scream did. Something really weird happened to me at Target. Like, there might be something creepy going on there. It was late at night after work and I was getting a bunch of items. It wasn't all that busy, so things were going pretty smoothly. I had been shopping for about 30 minutes and my cart was almost full. There was just a few more items that I needed to grab, and I was in the last section that I needed to go to, the cold section. There was nobody else in the freezer section at all. I reached down to grab some whipped cream and I saw something move in the corner of my eye. It looked like something was leaned up against the items in this section of the store, but it was moving. That's when I realized there was a person back there. And this person wasn't wearing the typical red shirt and khakis of a Target worker. They were wearing all black. But the weirdest part is that they had a black ski mask on. I tried to ignore him and move further down in the aisle, but he moved with me. He was staring at me from the other side, but luckily I only needed one more item. But as I went to grab the last item, the ski mask guy shoved all of the merchandise at me through the freezer. I started to pick them up to put them all back, and the guy took off running, so I decided I was going to tell a Target employee about what was going on. I found an employee and she said that there's some back doors that sometimes kids sneak through or whatever, so she would go tell them to leave. She went in the back and then came back out and said she couldn't find anybody and that they must have left. So I continued shopping. I finished my shopping and left, not expecting to ever see that man again. But about a week later, I went back to Target, my normal grocery shopping a week. I did my grocery shopping, everything was normal, I checked out and I started driving home. On the way home, I saw a figure jump out from behind a bush. And it was the same man in the same outfit with the same ski mask. I didn't return to Target for 2 weeks, but when I did, things got even weirder. Something scary is going on at Target. This is part 2. If you missed part 1, go back and watch that. So a few weeks later, I returned to the same Target, get my groceries, and I drive home, and nothing happened. I start unloading my groceries, and I had to park on the street by my house, so I'm starting to unload the groceries, and I'm on the street, and I noticed that there's a car parked like really close to me that also just pulled up. First, I thought that the car was empty, but then I saw something move in the back passenger seat. Someone climbed up to the front seat. When I tell you my jaw dropped, it was the freaking guy in the ski mask. At this point, this is way too close to my house. Like, this is borderline a stalking scenario. And he was just staring at me. He opened his door. I'm like stuck in shock at this point. He starts walking over to my car, and that's when the panic sets in. So I lock my car doors. Then he tried to open my driver's side door. When he realized it was locked, he just pressed his face against my driver's side window. I started yelling at him to go away, leave me alone. I put my car in reverse and started backing up, and this guy just held onto my car. Finally, he let go and he ran back to the car that he came from. I took off down a side street because I couldn't go home, then he would know where I live. Like selling them tens of thousands of dollars worth of drugs. He told me this on our first date. He's like, oh, so-and-so's here, I have to go bring him out this blah blah blah. And I'm just sitting in this man's house who's clearly in love with his ex-girlfriend, and I'm like, 1, how do I leave? And 2, like, do I take a video? I made an excuse to go home and I left, but that was not the last time I saw that man.
Story time on how I got stuck on the water slide on the cruise. Go on this water slide, you have to weigh a bare minimum of 120 pounds. First day that I tried to go on the water slide, he weighed me and I only weighed 119.6 pounds. And he told me to go eat a sandwich and come back and I could try again. And I literally went and ate a sandwich and tried again, except for I still did not make the requirement. Next day, as I was walking past the water slide, I asked if I could try again, and for some reason, I magically hit 120 pounds. It was one of those water slides where the floor drops out from underneath you and you just free fall. I go on the slide and I have just enough weight to make it to the top ridge of the first loop, but I have to scoot my butt over it to make it down. On the second loop, I did not make it. I didn't have enough weight, so I went up and then I went down backwards. But when I went backwards, I went right past the door. So I was under the assumption that I got stuck in the only part of the water slide where there was no escape. I start panicking. I sit up in the tube. It's humid. It's hard to breathe in there. Water's rushing. Water's in my contacts. I'm trying to see. I realize that I'm in the clear part of the tube. So I look down. I'm on the part of the tube that hangs off the ship. Hundreds of feet down below is the ocean. And I'm like, don't look that way. So I look up at the guy who sent me down and I'm like, hey, I like clear the fog off the tube and I'm like, bang, and I'm like, how do I get out of here? I'm freaking out because in front of me is an upward hike on the water slide. I'm in a loop, okay, and I'm at the bottom of the loop. In my mind, it's up and up. I don't know how I'm supposed to get out. Well, he's pointing this way. He's like, go that way. So I moved this way into the water slide, which is like pitch black because it was dark and covered. And that is when I found the escape door. And the guy opened it up and he let me out. Gets me out and he was like, are you okay? And I literally look at him and I was like, that was not fun. And then I just left. And I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, but that was horrifying.